And I remember looking at Malia when she was younger and feeling like there was something that arose where I was like, oh, I want this for her. And I realized in that moment, and I think it was probably about being fully self-expressed. And it was something like that, or to have like this confidence, or there was this feeling. And I was like, I realized that I wasn't there myself to the level that I would like for her to have access to. And that's when I was like, wow, you've got some work to do.
This is Into the Hen House, a podcast for moms with littles. In this space, we share the stories, experiences, and wild wisdom of mothers. We remember and celebrate the sacred. We are your hosts, Andrea and
Caitlin.
Get ready for some inspiration because it's time to jump into the hen house.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited that you are here. I am really, really thrilled with today's guest. This is Françoise Everett. And I have been so lucky and blessed to know her, for probably like around 10 years now, which makes me feel so old to say that. But she has been devoted for the last 15 or slightly 15 plus years to being a really beautiful mentor and coach for women, kind of through all of the different parts of identity and of self-leadership and things like that. And she is absolutely so extraordinarily kind and is just one of those people who you are super, super blessed to know. And I love talking to her because she always has such beautiful wisdom, almost on any topic you want to talk about. And I have worked with her in the past, and it's been just an extraordinary, extraordinary blessing. And she's a wonderful leader, and she is also a mother. Her daughter, we were just talking before the podcast started, has just recently turned 23, which is wild. And but we're going to talk about, some of what you did as she was growing up, because you have the most extraordinary relationship with her. And so I'm really, really looking forward to this. But anyways, welcome.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I'm just thrilled about this conversation because I can talk about motherhood all day long. So you are free to ask me anything and I will answer it from the deepest place. And, hopefully that will be helpful. But yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm eager to see what you want to ask. And I know that, there's certain things that you want me to share too along the way. And I will because it's been a blessing. I've loved my motherhood journey, loved it.
That's amazing. And I think that speaks so much too, because there's a lot there's just a lot of hard that comes with being a mother. And I feel like that gets a lot of airtime. However, there's also just this beautiful connection. And when one can really focus on that, it's really, really a very, very special honor to be a parent.
I so agree. Yes.
Yeah. But to start, will you share a little bit about your journey to become a mother? Because it was through adoption, but I know it was a long process. But can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. In its entirety, it was a 6-year journey. And so I was 29, and when we started trying, to get pregnant in the, most traditional of ways. And then after a couple of years, we went down the IVF path, and I had 2 live I forgot what they call them now, but I think it's called live IVF, and 1 frozen cycle or something like that. And on my second IVF, I wound up actually in intensive care for 5 days after the egg retrieval. So that kind of was like okay, so and I was so upset that I wouldn't be able to finish the IVF because I wanted this baby so badly, right? Like I was like, oh, can you just not put in the, do the whole completion of the cycle anyway? Meanwhile, I'm like, they're hoping my heart's not damaged and all this stuff. So I definitely had like an interesting experience. And then after our frozen cycle, we decided that was like in 2001. So that second IVF actually started the morning of 9/11, 2001.
Oh,
Like I
wow.
left home, nothing had
That's
happened, and
wild.
I arrived to the clinic and, the Twin Towers. So it was also this really surreal thing while I was in the hospital because I was like, oh my gosh, like this is nothing. What's happening to me is nothing, like nothing at all. Like, look what's happening in the world. Like, like it just gave me this crazy perspective where I was like, I'm gonna be fine. Like, I know I'm gonna be fine. Like, and it was a time where my husband was very nervous about like, was I gonna make it? I knew inside of myself, like without a shadow of a doubt that I would. And then later that year in December, we had the frozen cycle, and then that didn't work. And so in March is when we really started looking at adoption. And my husband at the time was like, I really like, he was ready before I was. He was ready before I was. And so I remember we attended this event for parenting, like, where you can choose to parent through adoption. You can choose to live without parenting. And I went into I went into that conversation too. Like I went into that work. I wanted to know everything. I was like, I want to consider every possibility because I also thought we could have a great life without parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to acknowledge that too, because I think it's a big part of the journey. If you're kind of on a longer journey through all these ways of possibilities, right? And then I really thought about it and I was like, yeah, I would love to adopt. I had to wait till I was like really feeling it. Like I didn't want to just make a mental decision. And I had
Mm-hmm.
already been kind of grieving through the idea that I wouldn't have this piece of me walking the earth. And now I can tell you that I have a piece of me walking the earth. She may not be through my body, but energetically, she is so our daughter. Like she's so walking, like she's like, I realized energy is just as potent as like
Mm-hmm.
like it was just, so that was kind of the journey to becoming a mother. And then when we went to China and, I used to say got her, but now I've changed it to received her.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had this really big awareness. Like this is a big story I've shared a lot. Do you want me to go into it?
Yeah. Share however.
Um,
Yeah.
is when I've changed her first diaper and she's lying on her back. She's 9.5 months old. She's been in the care at an orphanage
Mm-hmm.
with, I believe, people who loved her and were very, like very loving people and cared for
Mm-hmm.
her and all that.
Which
And
is wonderful.
mhm,
And I would say,
yeah,
she was very blessed because probably not every orphanage is that experience.
right. And I
So,
don't really
so that
know.
was
And
amazing.
yeah, and you bring
Yeah.
something up that I might want to share too, is that we went over there at the time like of SARS. Do you remember SARS?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right. So like
Yeah.
we've had COVID since then and the masks and all that business. But when we went over there, we were not allowed to go to the orphanages because we had traveled internationally. And it
Right.
was still the time of SARS. Like it was after SARS. It was about 6 months after,
Yeah.
but still. And so all the
But
prior
certain
groups,
countries would have been,
yeah,
and I would have been quite young at that time, but I do remember it being like a thing talked about in the news.
right.
But it was never anything I really worried about. Like in the town I lived in Canada, it was just like this was mostly something happening, like maybe in the
Like
really
over
big
there.
cities, like in Toronto a little bit, but mostly it was like across the ocean. And so,
Right. It was that for us too, here here in Atlanta. I mean, it was the same thing. Like we weren't like it just seemed like it was over there.
mhm.
And so
Well, all of a sudden you're over there, and and then it's like
right.
makes it very prevalent.
So I would say after we got her, like this story that I think was really, it was a very visceral experience for me because I was changing her diaper. And also before that, when we got her, actually, we were in a boardroom on like the 27th floor of a hotel. And we were 9 families, and there were 9 nannies that came in and brought each baby, right? So we got to meet her nanny. Like, we actually met her. She was this
Mm-hmm.
tiny little woman, and she was crying. And
Oh,
that just really
yeah.
gives me, and I remember my husband
That
was like,
says something.
yeah,
Yeah.
she was crying. And my husband was like, go ahead, get her, get her. And he, back then we didn't have these phones, so we had like the real video camera,
Uh-huh.
the old
Yeah.
fashioned thing. And I was hesitant to, like, I didn't want to take her out of her arms, right? Because I wanted her to like feel like she was ready, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it was like a really deep exchange. Like, it was a really deep thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the next morning when I was changing her diaper, um, she was on her back and I changed her diaper, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I give her my fingers like this, like, how you just go
Mm-hmm.
like that and they grab your little fingers, like
Yeah.
little hands, her little hands grabbed my fingers. She pulled
Mm-hmm.
herself up. And that was the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I need to discover who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Had I, this is what I believe about myself, is that had I birthed her, I would have parented her from who I thought I should be as a mother. And that was a visceral experience for me because I'd had 6 years to think about it. Like, I had plenty of time to think about who I would be as a mother. So it's not like it was like, oh my gosh, I'm a mother now. Like, I had lived into this possibility for a long time. And when I realized I need to discover who she is, anything about myself went out the window. Like, all of it. Because then a couple of days later, she's like on the floor in the hotel room and she's pulling herself up and she's kind of like scrambling across, holding on to furniture.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, like, who are you? Who's this little being? And that is how I parented her, like right from the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, which is complete for me, knowing how, like, I hadn't read any books on parenting. That was the one thing I was kind of like, I'm just going to trust. I hadn't read books on parenting. A lot of my colleagues at the Boston Consulting Group at the time were like, what do you mean you haven't read books on parenting? And what do you mean you haven't reserved a spot at like a daycare? I was like, I don't even know who she is. Like, I'm going to figure it out. But that was like such a huge thing that is how I approached it from that moment on. And it's still there today. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it became really powerful because as she grew up and things that I didn't like or understand, I would ask her about them. Like, I would have like, ooh, I don't like that she's interested in this or that. Like, what is that about, And so then I would ask her. So it always worked to be in discovery of it, and I can share
Mm-hmm.
more about that if you want to.
Yeah. I love that. And I think for me, that's definitely been one of the influences of having heard your story previously, at least large parts of it. And I lately have been really into Dr. Shafali and her conscious parenting books. And so she wrote The Conscious Parent, and then she wrote A Radical Awakening, which came later, and then The Awakened Family. And actually, she probably will have just started publishing around that time, I think, like the early 2000s or something like that. But it's like, even though you never read anything, it's like I feel like you discovered, kind of that whole concept also of like, who is this child? Like, it's not about who I think that they should be, but
Right.
it's rather like, who is this little being who, like, what journey are they here for? And how can I support them? How can I discover who they are and then love who they are instead of
Yes.
trying to control or change or
Yeah. I
things
think
like
you're really
that?
pointing to something is, there, of course, there's a place where we want our children to have the proper behavior or whatever, to some extent, right? Like, I think
Yeah,
that's
they still
important in
need
our
guidance.
society.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I wasn't teaching behavior. I was like teaching in a weird way. Like, I think I was teaching her to be mindful, to be curious, to be asking questions, to be like, it's not that, like, I didn't say no. Like, I'm not a mother who never said no,
Mhm.
right? But it's there's a way of just being present where, like, almost the behavior fell into place because they model absolutely everything that you do. Absolutely everything. And I can share with you something that I started doing, because at that time I was kind of building my business. Like, she was 5 when I got divorced and started building the business. She might have been 7. But at an early stage, I started to, whenever she was speaking, I would actually meet her. Like, I would turn and I would, like, listen to her. And then years later, when I would speak to her, she would turn towards me and listen. Like, she modeled the behavior because I wanted her to know she had my attention,
Mhm.
and that when it was complete, like, I would go on and do my things. Right? She's an only child, and so thankfully she was very, like, she was someone who was very creative with her own things at a very early age, like, right at, like, always. Like, she's spent hours in her room, and I think that's what's led her to now being studying to become a mechanical engineer because she's built stuff forever. Like, she's constantly building things, and she started doing that when she was 2 years old. So it's like nuances like that are really present, right? And I realized, like, what she craves is just the one-on-one presence. The amount of hours don't actually matter. And I think a lot of times we think it's, oh my gosh, I need to be around. But if we're busy with other things, we're not actually really with them.
Mhm.
And I realized that, what she wanted was, like, the presence. And then, like, I always told her if she wanted, like, for example, when she wanted to show me something that she had built, I would say to her, okay, like, mommy's still working, so give me 15 minutes and then I'll come find you. And I always did. Like, I didn't let
Mhm.
more than 15 minutes go by. So she learned to, like, really trust what I was saying. Like, do you
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? And so she does that now. Like, she's also, when she says she'll do something in 10 minutes, she'll do it.
Mhm.
Because I didn't just say, I'm not done, I'm not done, I'm not done. I was like, okay, 15 minutes have gone by. I am going to have to go back. And what did you want to show me? Like, what did you? So,
Mhm.
like, I held a container of truth between us, like, always, always,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, and that consistency. And I
Hmm.
think also, like, really, really, really doing what you say you're going to do
Yes.
and not getting distracted or forgetting. And I mean, we're all humans, so we may not do it like
Right.
100% perfectly, but being intentional about it. And
Yeah.
actually, I think even to this day, presence is what you do really well. And across like a lot of relationships, but I mean, it's really like seeing you and your daughter together is absolutely beautiful.
Thank
So,
you.
and I think it's, for, it's, I hear a lot. There's a lot of people have complex and potentially dysfunctional relationships with their own mothers, right? And I think then we become a mother and go like, oh my goodness, how can I how can I create a fabulous relationship when perhaps it hasn't been my personal experience? And like you've mentioned a few things kind of that you were really intentional about when she was little, but kind of what, like when you kind of look with some hindsight, like what were the kind of the components that you feel like landed you in this space of such beautiful connection?
Yeah, that's such a good question, Andrea. I did get along really well with my mother, and it wasn't perfect, just like you said. My mother was very critical. And so I was always, like, on this people pleasing mode, like a little bit of walking on eggshells sometimes. And that's, stuff that she recognizes. Like, it's beautiful because she's like, yeah, I could see that I did that. Like we're close too. And there's a couple things that come to mind. One of them is I remember being keenly aware of what I wanted for her, like for her to have all this sense of freedom and full self-expression, and for her to be like her whole self. And we've heard this now for decades, but I was thinking this like, you know, like 20 years, like 18 years ago,
Yeah.
right?
Before, a little bit before it was more mainstream, I
Right.
think.
Right. Yeah, I
Not
feel
that I
so.
was
I feel
looking
that
at
way.
parenting
Yeah.
stuff back then, but
Right. What's that?
I said not that I was necessarily looking at parenting stuff back then, but I could say for sure, like, even the kids that I babysat for or whatever, it was like they weren't really getting parented from that approach, really. Like, it was most of the parenting I saw growing up was a little bit more control based.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. And I haven't heard it named that way. And I think you're absolutely right. Like I grew up in some of that for sure. And I still loved my parents. I was close to them. Like I had a
Yeah.
really like my parents are wonderful people. And so I was very blessed, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember looking at Malia when she was younger and feeling like there was something that arose where I was like, oh, I want this for her. And I realized in that moment, and I think it was probably about being fully self-expressed. And it was something like that, or to have like this confidence, or like, I don't even know if I'm doing it justice with the words. It was this feeling. And I was like, I realized that I wasn't there myself to the level that I would like for her to have access to. And that's when I was like, wow, you've got some work to do. Because you can talk all you want, you can say the things. And I was like, if I want her to have this for herself, to live at this level, then and it wasn't a judgmental thing about myself. It was like, I could see the places where I hold back, where I'm like, but I dim this down, or I hesitate, or I don't say the thing, right? Like it's like an unspoken thing that doesn't come out. Now, I'm not saying speak it out and like, you know, do it unkindly and, vomit all over people. I'm not saying that, but it's like where were the places inside of me where I was like, I don't fully have that. I don't fully have that. So if I want her to have it, then maybe I should see what I require to be there myself. And that's kind of a lot of the ways in which I feel that I've approached coaching too, is like I'll never say something or suggest something or intuit something that I haven't been through or walked through myself. And then another time, that another sort of focus of mine was, okay, I want to make sure that when she's a teenager, you've heard me say this before, that when she's a teenager, I don't lose communication with her, because it scared me. Like, I remember when I was in high school in the early 80s that, people would come in and talk about this is before internet, by the way, before phones,
Yeah.
before all that stuff. So people would come into the school and you'd go to the auditorium and listen to the person who'd become like, a drug addict telling you don't do it. And it scared the heck out of me. It scared the heck out of me. So I was like, not doing anything. And it was like this thing that I was afraid of in high school. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, how do I stay in communication? How do I cultivate a relationship with her where she trusts me and I trust her, such that when she arrives in high school, there's no hidden anything, right? This was like a big deal. That's like a lot to hope for.
Yeah.
It felt like it to me at the time, like it felt like it to me at the time.
Yeah.
And so I really started to, I just started a conscious open line of communication where I set up some parameters and I said, listen, if you ever feel like, something happened at school, or you did something, or you are afraid to tell me, and, the best thing to do is to indeed share this so that I can help you with it. And I said, one thing I will promise you is that if you say, I did something and you're not going to like it, number one, you're going to get my attention right away. So if you ever feel that, like that's our little code,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And I will completely drop what I'm doing. I will be present with you and listen, and you will not be in trouble. You will not be in trouble. At a young age, I remember putting her in the corner because I'd go to all these Chinese play groups and people would, be like, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that for, punishment or discipline. And I realized very early on, I was not really keen on punishment. I am keen on discipline, but not punishment. And she was in the corner one day and I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done. I'm like, come out of the corner. She was in the corner and she was so cute. She'd like look like she'd go sideways and be like, and I'd be like, go ahead, turn back around, sweetie. Like I was so sweet about it. And then like a minute later, I was like, this is so dumb. Like, why would I do that? Like, what? Like, what? Now, I will say that, you probably ought to know your child. My child was not very difficult. So she was actually really, really, like with me, she was so easeful. Like, that's why I think if we're really connected to them and we like parent from who they
Mhm.
are, because I believe every child, I only have one, so I can only speak about the one, but I think every child's different. So you don't parent everybody the same. You like
Mhm.
get tuned into the one and then the other and then the other. And then, it might look like, oh, this is unfair, whatever. But between them, I don't know. I don't have that dynamic and that experience to speak to. But what happened one time is I picked her up at school and I can't even tell you the thing that she told me, but she sat in this car seat. She was in elementary school and she was pretty small. So she was in car seat for a long time. Like,
Yeah.
even the booster seat.
Yeah. No, I,
And
I get that because I think sometimes I'm like, if the rules had been the same for me, I would have still been in a booster seat in junior high school.
right,
Like for real.
I think she was until like the first year of junior high school.
Okay.
She was like, because she was not enough weight, not enough
Because I
And
don't
then
know
I was
what
like,
what
let's
the
just get rid of this
ratios
thing.
are, but I remember at the end of grade 7, I was 76 pounds
That's probably what she
and I
was.
hit 100 in college and I was like, woohoo.
Yes, right? I know. I think there was a point, I will admit, there was a point I was like, let's get rid of that. You want to? She's like, yes.
Right?
Um, But there was a time I picked up in elementary school and she's like, Mommy, I have to tell you something and you're not going to like it. And I was driving and I was like, okay. I said, all right, well, do you want to tell me now? And it took, we got home because the elementary school was very close to where we lived. And it took 40 minutes for her to get the words out.
Mhm.
40 minutes. And I can't even remember what it was. It was so small in my world, but it was big in hers.
Mhm.
Right? It was huge in hers. And I literally can't remember what it was. I just remember that she did that. And I just stayed with her and I said, I'm here. I'm here with the whatever time. And I said, you can just say it's okay. And she did. And I was like, okay. I didn't want to make her feel like, well, that was so little. Like, why did you even why were like I wanted her to honor whatever experience it
Mhm.
was for her. And then I eventually said to her, I understand that this was scary for you and whatever. Like I reflected back to her, like that she had these feelings and she was afraid and whatever. And I said, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not mad. This is like honestly, it's not even a big thing. And I can, I'm glad that you shared it with me. Like it felt like a big thing for you. Um and then that was it. And I
Mhm.
think that when we witness them, right? Like if I did anything wrong, I would get in trouble. Did you do this? And I was petrified of
Mhm.
getting in trouble. I was like, no. So I lied. I knew, right? So I didn't want her to do that. Now I was not a
Mhm.
terrible, like I didn't do bad things. I really didn't. I was still a good girl. But I was aware of my own behavior, right? Where I did not want to be in trouble. And so honestly, it opened it all up. It opened it all up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was thoughtful conversation. It was presence. It was asking her, what are you feeling about this? Like, I kind of did these things before the feminine power training, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just, I was just very present about it. And I knew that that was building trust along the way. At the same time, I wanted her to know, like, I can share another occurrence where there was this ice cream thing happening in the like where we lived. Like, I was living in this beautiful apartment complex, and there was a town square, and one day there was this whole ice cream thing social going on, and I kept telling her, I'm like, the ice cream social's going, and she's like, no, no, she was busy building something in her room. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I said, and I came back in and I said, this is the last time I'm going to let you know that this is the last moment that we can go. Then it's going to finish and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And then she finished her thing. And then and I said, but this is it. This is it. If you come back to me in 10 minutes, we're done. I wanted her to know that I will honor my word. I didn't want her to push me so hard that I would be like, oh, okay, let's go do it. Let's go. And she did go through that. She was very much, she finished her thing, and all of a sudden ice cream sounded like a good idea. And I was like, no, no, I was very clear with you, sweetie. And I wasn't like, I was
Mm-hmm.
very clear with you. I mean, not like that. I was like, no,
Yeah.
sweetie, I was very clear. Like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no. She cried her little heart out, like, so hard. It was very painful
Mm-hmm.
for me as a mother. And I held her. We
Mm-hmm.
were sitting on the floor in the closet, and I just held her and held her and held her while she sobbed. And I knew in my whole being that it was in service to her trusting, that
Mm-hmm.
she could trust me to say this, to say this, to do that. And that it
Yeah.
was also like, I didn't want her to be a child later on who always pushed the buttons and always moved the limit and push and push. And then finally, and then I would be the parents who said, okay, okay, okay. Like, I didn't want to be that mother either. So I
Right.
was like, all of it was in a massive container of love.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And I
all of
think,
it.
and I think it's people
And
get
I know it's not harsh,
confused.
but that's what I chose to do back then. I
Yeah.
don't know, like, that was many, many years ago. It was probably like 18 years
Yeah.
ago. But, like, that's how I created. I don't know. I might be
Right.
horrifying you.
No, no, I mean, I don't know, right? I think sometimes for myself, I find myself going like being really firm, and then I'm going, wait, do I actually, like, how important is it actually to be firm about this right now? And sometimes I'm like, you know what? No, I'm just being firm for, like, it's actually okay. Like, I actually really don't need to get my way right now. It's okay.
I
And then
totally
other
agree.
times, it's like, nope, this is what was said. This is what needs to happen. And it's okay to be upset. And this still needs to happen.
Yeah. And I think the
And then you can
discernment,
hold to it. So,
is extremely important in
and
each scenario, right?
yeah, and I think it can vary, right? And
Absolutely.
I wouldn't claim to get it right every time, but sometimes I'll catch
Well, neither would
myself and I'm
I.
going like, like, why am I being controlling? Like, I don't need to be controlling right now. like
Yeah.
this is not as like this is a much bigger deal in my head than it actually is. And then other things I'm like, no, this is actually a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the discernment with our own child, and also what it means in that moment. And, it cannot, I don't see parenting ever as an all or nothing thing,
Mm-hmm.
like, the whole thing for me was like cultivating a, a healthy, happy human being,
Right.
you know?
Right. Well, and I think people forget but to be a healthy, happy human being, you do need some boundaries and you do need consistency and you do need certain things so that, like, I don't know where I read it, but one author had said, she's like, it's the parent's job to hold the container and it's the child's job to poke at all the edges.
Yes. And they've done a study too, that when a child was inside of a playground that had containment, they went all the way to the edges. But when there was no containment, they stayed more inward. So there's like a I don't know all the studies around it, but I just remember the story of being like, wow, like the boundaries really matter. They feel like safety for the child, you know? And that's what I wanted to create with her, was like that she felt safe to be completely in communication with me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's, in perhaps in wanting to kind of, like in the pendulum, right? Like things will swing kind of far one way, and maybe not wanting to be too much like perhaps past generations or what one might have experienced. I think sometimes people swing a little too far the other way and become very permissive. And it's kind of a balance, because permissive isn't necessarily the best option either per se. But it's interesting how just kind of like how each parent will find their way based on who is the child in front of me and who am I, and
Right.
what was my upbringing and what do I want for their upbringing. And like it's like a puzzle with 10 billion little tiny pieces.
It sure is. That's a great expression for it. It really is a puzzle with like 10 million little pieces. Yeah, as she got older, I actually told her at one point, I said, if you ever feel like I'm saying something and it's incorrect or you disagree, don't hesitate to disagree with me, you know? And she does. She does disagree. And when she does, I'm glad that she does, because she found her own individuation through all this, right? There was a space for her to be like, no, I'm my own and I don't like that, or I'm not agreeing with you. And we talk it out mostly through with respect, respectfully. It doesn't mean that there aren't emotions there either. Sometimes there are emotions there for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Can you share, you had told me a story, I don't know, some time back, and it was like you were going to go pick her up from college, and you ended up having this conversation of like, no, like tell me really truly what you would prefer.
Yes.
And like working out that people pleasing, like don't say just what you think I want to hear. I don't know if I got that right, but
yes, I can't believe you remember that. Wow. Yeah. So I think she was it must have been like a long weekend or holiday weekend or something. And I think she was finished on a Thursday night. And I think her dad was going to go pick her up. And then for some, like he couldn't. And it was like, the evening, like a Thursday evening. And I said to her, I'm like, I can pick you up. And in my own preference, I would have preferred Friday morning. But I was willing to go get her Thursday evening. And I think she was kind of trying to get it right. Like, which one would serve you better? Like, which one does mommy really prefer? And finally, we were talking. I said, all right, sweetie, like, what do you really want? Like, really? And she's like, Friday morning. I was like, perfect, because it works better for me. And I think a lot of times we hesitate, and like I would have been talking myself into Thursday to pick her up to please her, thinking, and she was trying to put it into Thursday to please me, when in fact both of us, having an honest conversation, we're both preferring Friday morning, because she wanted to like finish things and have the morning and whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'd rather come like pick you up on Friday morning and then we can have lunch and stuff, like
less traffic,
And yeah. And so that was a huge thing even for us at the time. Like, and it keeps happening. Things keep unfolding. We're always, right? Like that actually goes back to what I was saying about that full self-expression, where I was like, wow, I want that for her, but I'm not fully there myself, right? When she was little. Like those things unfold for us all the time.
Right.
All the time. It's not like we just landed.
It's
got
like,
it now.
oh,
Like it's
finally
always
we've
there.
done enough self-growth. I've made it. It's like, no, sorry, here's the next thing.
Exactly. And there are times when it's like, listen, this is my preference and it's not her preference, and we go with mine.
Right.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa. Yeah.
Or vice versa. It's not always my way or her
Mhm.
way. It's what are we willing to negotiate?
Right. But the willingness to be honest and say like, this
Mhm.
is actually what I would like. And I think that speaks also to that there's safety, that you can say, hey,
Yes.
this is actually my preference, and trust that the other person cares.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like, and I think also like for many of us as adults, it's like, okay, there's room to be a little more open. Like, this is really what I would prefer. And to say it in a kind way and not, just in
Right.
like a very reactionary way, but to
Yeah.
say like, this is my preference. What's your preference? And then how do we navigate the middle if it's different? Like
Absolutely.
how do we navigate the middle so that it's
Yeah.
at least over time a win-win?
Yes. And you know what else? There are times when we can take it a step further and say, why do you see it that way? I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious. Like, I'm really curious. And sometimes something will come up that all of a sudden you're like, oh, I see. Okay. Well, we could do it that way. I see
Mm-hmm.
that. But if we don't go one step further, one step deeper, we're missing, like we're living on the surface, and that's okay. It happens,
Right.
right? Like I'm not saying every moment has to be depth, but sometimes it's like, oh, I see. All right. Well, let me think about that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
And
then and there's go ahead.
yeah, no, and I think what you're saying is curiosity, not like convince me.
Oh my gosh,
Like
totally.
bring your argument to
Yes.
court and I'll be the judge with my gavel,
No.
but like actual genuine curiosity.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I never even thought of it that way. It's like it doesn't live in my realm, but I get it. That's so brilliant what you just, brought forth to like, yes, honest curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, and I'm going, for people who know you, you're very genuinely curious, like about everything all the time. And it's such a beautiful thing. But I've also heard stories where, and it's not so much between parents and children, but between like partners, where it'll be like, okay, prove your point. And if I'm convinced, then we'll go with it. But like from a very like closed down perspective, and I have been guilty of that on occasion too, where I'm like,
We all have our growth edges. I have them all the time. We all have them, and I think when we can be compassionate about it or realize, like, oops, I'm doing that again,
right, like here I go.
because I think you're right. Like, it's important to even think about the partnership too.
Yeah. And I think too, like I've also heard this with mothers, it's like, I have all the patience in the world, like I'm so gentle and kind and curious and like so good with my kids or kid, And then I turn to my husband and it's like, be like, okay, where did that come from?
Yeah, I know. And I think we all have a version of that. And I've had to grow through that. I'll be honest. I'm very emotional, like very emotional. Like my emotions like come through. Now I'm not dramatic emotional. Like I don't have these big outbursts, but I will kind of close or be like, I can't talk about this right now. And over time, I was like, I actually want to be the woman who evolves past and through this
Mm-hmm.
habit that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was very gentle with myself because it was a strong thing inside of me, and it would show up not about parenting with Hilton because, he parented his children and I was parenting mine
Mm-hmm.
even though we moved in together like 9 years ago. But there are things that I would do it. He's like, you do that all the time. And I'm like, oh, you know, and at first it was very painful to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, I was like, I really actually would like to be the woman who moves through that more
Mm-hmm.
thoughtfully, more elegantly, if you will, like more,
Yeah.
you know, like I finally got to a place where I was the one who's like, I really want to move through this and evolve past these patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's not like I said it and then it was done. It was kind of like I would fall back in and be like, oh, shoot. I fell back into this. And then I would be like, I'm
That
so
darn
sorry. I just
hole.
fell
No.
back into this. What's that?
Said that darn hole.
I know, right? But
And
that
somehow I'm like down at the
sincerity,
bottom and going, okay, how did I get here? Why
right?
am I
No,
surprised?
so totally. But
That makes me
or I
laugh to
should say,
cry a
and
little bit.
I know that level of sincerity works because it's intimate. It creates
Mhm.
intimacy. And like, I mean, I'm very blessed because he's a very highly elevated, conscious human being. And you know, he's a lot older than I am. So I'm always like, oh, but you've like had all these extra years to get there. You know, like I'm still in my late 50s. Like, stop it, you know, like I would definitely, and he's like, I understand. Like, but let me tell you, I didn't get it until I was older than you. I get it. But so there's this recognition, right? Like if you can
Mhm.
be patient with each other and be like, ooh, I just noticed that I did that again. And I had to get to the place where it mattered enough to me. You know,
Mhm.
like it mattered to me that it didn't work for him,
Mhm.
but yet I had to go even deeper with myself and be like, oh my gosh, I'm finally ready to be the woman who like moves through this and doesn't have these reactions and doesn't have a meltdown or
Mhm.
doesn't have the emotions that like come on already. Like I got to that very honest,
Mhm.
radical honesty with myself.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it
Yeah.
takes that. And I think that when you communicate from a place like that, then it opens up so much.
Right. Right. And I think so this was something else you had said. Honestly, I don't even know when. But talking about evolution, like of oneself. And you had said, and I think it can show up in a lot of different ways. One would be kind of like what you were just talking about. And I also think culturally, this may have been what we were talking about, like culturally, how people will look at their childhood and go like, oh, like look at all these patterns that came about because of, you know, the way my parents parented or because of how I reacted to their parenting or because of this, that, or the other. And it ends up being this blaming of the parents that came before, and which really isn't helpful. It's helpful to say this is my pattern and now let me change it, but I think it's not helpful to lay all the blame on them because they did the best that they could. But you had also said, like, of course each generation is going to parent a little bit differently and is going to show up a little bit differently because that's just the natural evolution of things, that, you know, we make slightly different choices and then, you know, and then we'll make our mistakes and they might be a little bit different or they might be a couple of the same ones. And each generation is then asked to take the time and energy and effort to look within and say, like, where are my gaps? Where are my little wounds that are triggering reactions? And each, you know, each generation is asked, you know, to kind of do their own evolution. And but that has stuck with me, kind of that
Yeah.
whole concept from whenever it was that you said it.
Yeah. And I love that you bring up the fact that it could be cultural too, because I do think different cultures raise children differently. And I do believe that we're always evolving. Like it makes sense that our children would surpass us in a way. Like like for the evolution, hopefully for the good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at my daughter at her age and what she's accomplishing, I'm like, what was I doing at her age? Like, I wasn't even like a party person. Like, I was like, I had a job and like I had graduated from college at 22. Now she's in a longer program, but she's so responsible, like so responsible. And she thinks faster than I did at that age. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like for years, I'm like, where'd you learn that? Where'd you learn that? Where'd you learn that? Where'd you learn that? She's like, YouTube. I'm like, what? You know, like she was in middle school, subscribed to 8 science channels on YouTube. And I was like, she would say, Mom, did you know this? Did you know this? Did you know that? And I'm like, now, of course, when I was growing up, and I think when you were growing up, we didn't have any of that.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
we were playing in the yard and on the bicycle in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So I
so-
had dial up. It came. Now, where I lived, usually things came a little bit slower than they would have like in New York or something like that. But we got dial up. I would have been maybe end of junior high, just going into high school, something like that. And it was like email.
Yeah.
Like you could get your own email address. And that was
That's-
really the extent of it.
Right.
And then in high school there was like the little MSN Messenger and you could send your little messages. And I think I used it once.
Yeah.
Or something because it was like, this is just, my mom's like, get off the internet. You're taking up the phone line. You have 2 minutes to check your emails.
Right. I finished college and we didn't have internet. We had computer labs with a floppy diskette.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
we had
I
to
remember
sign
the
up.
floppy disks too.
Right. Yeah, the floppy disk.
And I think even in college, my one professor was like, you need to submit this on a floppy disk. And it was definitely a little bit like, okay, I'm going to have to make sure I get a computer that has a floppy disk. But I didn't get my own laptop or my own cell phone until I moved to Atlanta. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I was 20, but still. But that was the only reason I got it, was because all of a sudden I was going to be living, you know, on my own. And my parents are like, well, we would like you to still be able to keep in touch. So, so we're going to get you a cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but it was a very different world, you know, and like even in the beginning of chiropractic school, there were no iPads. I took all my notes handwritten, right? And that would have been
Absolutely. Yeah.
you know, and then, you know, what, like 5 years later, everyone was like computers and
Right. Yeah. I mean, the first time I ever had a computer was when I was working, when I was out of college and I was working.
yeah. So I mean, just it's just based on environment alone, it's like we all have to evolve a lot.
Totally. Totally.
You know, and then there's things that we learn and
yeah. And you know, I'm thinking of do we have time? Can I?
Yeah, I think so.
We do?
Yeah.
You were talking about the like the evolution and the parenting. I have a client who's she and her husband created a foundation, not a foundation, an entire I can't believe I can't think of it, in Nepal, like
Oh, the nonprofit?
a nonprofit, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point during the pandemic, she asked me to facilitate the girls who were in their early to later 20s. They were like college years, maybe they were 19, right? 18, 19. They were around that age, and there were like 20 of them on Zoom. And we had the most incredible conversations. One of them, when I was on Zoom with them, said, I want to become a nurse and come to the United States. And she eventually did that. And I was like, what? That's amazing. That's amazing. And her sister actually moved to Australia. I think it was maybe 3 years ago. I sat with her here in Atlanta at one of the benefits, the fundraisers. She had moved to New York. She had a nursing job, and she did it on her own. Like my client and her husband supported, but not financially. They were like, you need to figure this out on your own. Like, we're here to support you to have it become a reality. And, like, it's on you. Like, you have that inside of you. And when I got to sit with her, she told me about how she and her sisters were very little, like maybe 3 and 4, 4 and 5, walking, I don't know for how long, several days or something crazy like that, to find like the orphanage or the social welfare system, whatever they call it in Nepal. And I asked her like all these questions. And then one of the children of this couple said, it's absolutely amazing. They don't look at their past with any kind of like reason for not having what they want today. Like, they don't hold on to the stories. And I think that was like so huge for me. They don't look back and say, oh my God, I had all this trauma, all this difficulty, all this, all this, that. And they just are like, yeah, no, like, this is like just what happened. Like, that's just what happened. And when we adopted Malia, I was like, some people would say, I'm going to tell her that the uncle blah, blah, blah story, said she had, because you couldn't keep a girl if you had more than one child. So that's why the girls, in China went to the orphanages. But I was like, I'm never going to tell her any story. I'm just going to tell her that was her life. Like, I had to say, I was like, that's your story. Like, you were just in the orphanage and you were loved, and then we came and got you, and right. And so like, even the stories we tell about what happened influence so much of what we live. And nothing came through for me in the way that this woman did, like from Nepal to New York, and then sitting right next to her and asking her all these questions. And she's like, oh, it was like this and that. And there was nothing, like, to me, that was like, so that's where I think it can be cultural and we could learn,
Yeah. And that's really powerful, because it's like, it could be all these things happened, or we had these thoughts, or we did these things, or whatever it was. But if we don't place so much judgment on it and it simply just is, then all of a sudden the baggage is a lot lighter.
Yes.
We're not carrying nearly as much. It just
Right.
is what it was, and it doesn't have to mean so much.
Yeah. And it might also be part of like who she is today, but in a beautiful way, like in a positive way. Like, look at all that she was able to create in her life. Right. And to me, it just shows how strong our human spirit is if we stop telling ourselves diminishing stories.
Yeah.
You
And I think
know? And
also
we all
has a
do
lot to
it.
do with how we talk about our children too, not just to them, but also around them,
Mm-hmm.
and just,
Yes.
and to ourselves too, because I think, but yeah, I love so much of what you've said, like just so much awareness and so much compassion and so much just willingness to go deep with ourselves, but from a loving place, as opposed to like I need to fix myself because there's something wrong with me, and until I do this, then I'm not, because I think that there's a lot of that comes up with things too, but rather like, I'm already enough as I am, like look at all that I've accomplished, and look at this one little area, like,
Yeah.
let me see if I can move through this. Let me get to the next beautiful, I don't know what the word would be, version of self.
I love that.
But
I really love that.
yeah. And as a coach, I can say from personal experience, that is what you do as a coach, is very much like with so much softness and so much kindness, but just like, here, like, take my hand and let's like fly like little fairies. And wow, look at this one small, beautiful little place. And with a little, how can we become the version, the next version of you, but with so much grace.
Thank you.
So.
I think thank you so much for that. I think that every opportunity is a space of something beautiful to emerge.
Mhm.
Every challenge, it's like, what else could this be?
Right.
And so it's
Right.
like,
Do not see it as a bad thing, perhaps,
right.
but
Yeah.
rather
And
the next beautiful opportunity. And
yeah.
that can be an interesting shift to make. So,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
it's very powerful to be able to begin to do that shift. So, but yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. I loved this. Thank you.
I did too. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your stories and your wisdom. And this is just, I always love talking to you. I feel like it's always inspiring and beautiful. And I just, I sometimes think to myself, I'm like, like, who do I want to be when I grow up? No, except me, but, but with, some of your influence having rubbed off. How about
Oh.
that?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
This was so much fun. I love these conversations, Andrea. Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm glad. I'm so glad. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to our beautiful listeners. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming on this journey today. And I will make sure that you get all of the information that you need if you want to connect with Françoise. And I'll make sure that that's all in the show notes so you can connect and follow her and engage with her and, whatever else you feel called to. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you are loving this podcast, please go ahead and subscribe and leave us a review. Both of these really help the show. As you go out into the world this week, know that we are sending you so much love and wishing you a wonderful and beautiful day. And we will see you back here soon.